So recently Misfits 07 happened and there were some interesting and entertaining fights on this card. Now before we get into the topic at hand, which is the title of this video, I'd want to give a little review on my thoughts on Misfits 07. One of my personal favorite fights from the event was the Wings vs Boogie 2988 fight on the Happy Punch prelims. And me, who used to be somewhat of a fan of Boogie and his Francis Rage skits, it was nice to see him get involved in the influencer boxing scene unlike a certain psycho baby.
Everyone's just mad, desperate, we're just beating the out of YouTubers that just want clout so bad they're beating the out of each other.
But with this fight, we all watched this just for the entertainment aspect, and Boogie and Wings somewhat delivered. Of course, Wings got the win at the end, but it was still entertaining either way. The DK Money vs Virus fight was also insane, with Virus getting knocked down first and coming back with a KO over DK Money and ultimately winning the fight. Then, the biggest upset of the night, Salt Poppy vs Anthony Taylor, with Anthony winning by unanimous decision, and AT was able to prove to everyone who thought he'd get KO'd by Salt Poppy. Deji vs Swarms was also entertaining as well. Deji still got the win at the end, but honestly I expected a lot more from him, but it is what it is. But I guess hopefully we'll see that in his next fight, as his coaches did say that he had 3 months off after the Floyd fight. And of course, KSI vs Joe Fournier, JJ was able to knock out Joe Fournier cold, but with an elbow, actually. This caused a bunch of controversy and the fight eventually got overturned as no contest. So the win over Joe Fournier doesn't technically count for JJ, but I guess we know JJ would have still won that fight either way. However, despite all this, JJ is still moving forward, and he even called out Tommy Fury after his fight, and they had their face-off in the ring. Now this is where we get into the main topic of this video. Originally after Joe, JJ was going to be ready for Jake Paul as they planned to have a fight towards the end of the year. Of course, negotiations behind the scenes for this fight were complicated, and it looks like this fight is not going to be happening at all this year. However, instead JJ is planning on facing the one and only Tommy Fury, the same guy who beat Jake Paul a couple of months ago. JJ claims that if he can't directly destroy Jake Paul, he will just have to indirectly destroy the guy who beat Jake Paul to prove that he's better than Jake. Now that begs a question. Is the hype for KSI vs Jake Paul officially dead? To be honest, for now, I'll say it kinda is. Of course, Jake losing to Tommy made it a little worse, as Jake had his first loss and somewhat got exposed in that fight. But people still claim that Jake still beats KSI today. To be honest, right now I kinda see it as a 50-50 fight. Despite JJ's performance and of course the elbow incident, he improved a lot from the last fight and was even winning the fight for the first 2 rounds. I think the Tommy Fury fight is a good way for him to prove that he's better than Jake Paul, if he beats him at least, or at least has a better performance than Jake, but we'll just have to see. Personally, I can't really see JJ winning against Tommy. Maybe a split decision loss or unanimous win. It's between those two for me. Or Tommy could just knock out JJ, but I mean, I don't know if that could happen, but we'll just have to see. With JJ's new style, his defense is very minimal, so he could easily get caught with some shots if he isn't as careful, especially with the more experienced boxer like Tommy Fury. Either way, if JJ wins or loses, there's still some hype behind KSI vs Jake, but I'll say until the fight is actually confirmed, the hype could probably go back. Also, Jake is fighting Nate Diaz in August, so depending on how Jake performs in that fight, and if he gets his redemption win, the hype for KSI vs Jake Paul could go back up. Nikisa, Jake Paul's manager, recently insisted on the fight between KSI and Jake to take place early next year in February. I'm assuming KSI is fighting Tommy in either August or December of this year, so after that fight a few months later could be the fight we've all been waiting for, KSI vs Jake Paul. But honestly, I feel like it's kinda too soon to have the fight, unless JJ fights Tommy in August. Cause if he fights in December, it can only be 2 months worth of build up for KSI vs Jake Paul, which is arguably one of the biggest fights in influencer boxing. But again, we'll just have to wait and see how both KSI and Jake progress throughout their next fights. However, JJ claimed recently after the Tommy Fury fight he wants to retire from boxing unless he gets the Jake Paul fight. So if negotiations can meet early for next year, we could finally see that fight. But I'll say right now, the hype is kinda dead for the time being, but it'll definitely come back when the fight actually gets confirmed, and especially when the fight week comes around, cause that's when shit gets real. Most of the people that are invested in influencer boxing really want to see this fight either way, just for the culture, despite it seeming to have lost its hype throughout the last few years. And this will be hands down the biggest influencer boxing fight to date, even probably surpassing the first KSI vs Logan fight, but again, we'll just have to see. Me personally, I want to see this fight either way, and I'm sure a lot of the YouTube community would want this too. This fight will prove who truly is the best in the influencer boxing scene. If JJ wins, he'll have beaten both Pauls and will have solidified his legacy, and he'd probably retire and of course go back to music or sidemen. If Jake wins, he avenges his brother's loss, and he still proves that he is better than KSI. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see what happens once this fight rolls around. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to never miss out on brand new videos. Also, you can suggest other video topics you want me to cover in the comments below. As always, thank you guys for watching. I am Mega Shadow signing out. Peace.